Have you ever been called the strong one? You know, the person who never complains. The one literally everyone depends on. The one who always just smiles and says, "Oh, I'm fine." Well, today we are exploring a deeply profound truth that's rarely spoken out loud. We're diving into this explainer on the hidden cost of always being strong.
I want to start by asking you a really profound question. Does life only ever ask if you can take more? I want you to really sit with that for a second, because it often feels like the reward for handling hardship well is just being handed even more hardship, doesn't it? The concepts we're looking at today directly validate that constant, unrelenting pressure you might be feeling. That pressure to absorb, to manage, and to just endure without ever breaking.
Okay, let's dive right into section 1, the invisible burden.
You see, this learned behavior, it starts incredibly early in life. You basically learn to swallow your tears and just continue. Society, our families, our workplaces, they all reward us when we push forward without breaking down, right? They're silently teaching us that hiding our pain is basically the only acceptable way to exist. So you become a master at masking your internal reality, really just to keep the peace and keep things moving. Consider this quote, "Made of your own chest a cramped place to fit the whole world." Think about the actual physical sensation of that metaphor. To make room for everyone else's problems, everyone else's anxieties, and all their needs, you've had to literally squeeze your own emotions into this tiny, cramped corner of your own heart. You've shrunk your own needs just to accommodate the massive weight of the world around you.
And that perfectly captures the intense cognitive dissonance of being the strong one. On the outside, you're smiling on autopilot, calming the environment around you. But internally, it's a soul silently crying out, just begging for affection. Because you're so incredibly good at that autopilot smile, nobody even notices the heavy, silent weight in your step. Which brings us to a core truth today. And please, really hear this. It is not weakness. If your soul is tired, if your natural shine has dimmed because you're fighting battles absolutely no one else can see, it's not a defect. It is not a flaw in your character. Moving right along to section 2, the silent exhaustion.
So emotional exhaustion doesn't always look like some dramatic breakdown. In fact, it's often the small, quiet signs that scream the absolute loudest. The pain hides in the way you survive. It shows up on nights when the house suddenly feels way too big, and the silence literally presses against your chest. It's in the clothes left on the line, the forgotten cup of coffee. These aren't just moments of forgetfulness, you guys. They silently scream the true, hidden size of the wound you're carrying.
This next thought hits so hard. And the bathroom mirror, in such uneven light, showed you a whole face tired of appearing normal. We all know that moment, don't we? That totally isolated, private moment at the very end of the day. When the door is finally locked, the mask drops, and you just look at yourself. You aren't just physically tired. You're profoundly exhausted from the act of appearing normal for everyone else. And so we've got to remember our refrain here. It is not weakness. That exhaustion nobody sees, the pain completely hidden in your survival mechanisms, this is simply the cost of survival. If your strength no longer wants to fake it today, it is not a failure. Honestly, it might just be your soul finally asking for permission to exist. That brings us to section 3, the shelter for others. There is this beautiful but kinda tragic truth to this whole dynamic. You have been the answer to so much of other people's confusion. You became the shelter, the absolute refuge for everyone else who had nowhere else to put their hands. You became the rock. But the problem with being a shelter is that people come to you to drop off their storms, and then you're just left to weather the elements on their behalf. This idea perfectly captures the immense, almost godlike burden of playing this role. The weight of being strong all the time is holding up the sky while smiling, even in discomfort. It's literally like the myth of Atlas carrying the heavens, but you are expected to do it with a pleasant smile, just absorbing everyone's chaos without showing a single sign of strain. But carrying this burden nonstop, it simply isn't sustainable. Having limits does not make you lesser. It just reminds you that feeling things is a value. It's a fundamentally human trait. Eventually, the person who carries the weight for so long needs to lay down too. You just cannot be the solid foundation for everyone else if you're structurally crumbling inside. Once again, it is not weakness. If your soul is asking for a moment of calmness in the middle of all the chaos you've been living through, that is not giving up. That's a natural, healthy response.
Let's move into our final section, Section 4. The armor needs to breathe. So here are the metaphorical steps to finally put down your defenses. First, you've got to let the armor breathe. You've worn it so tightly for so long. Second, slowly release what couldn't be named, all those incredibly complex, heavy feelings you never had the luxury of vocalizing. And third, embrace yourself without needing to prove new courage. You don't need to earn your right to rest. You don't need to show how brave you are before you're allowed to just stop. There is a real tenderness waiting to find you the exact moment you permit yourself to lower the weight of the world. And remember, it was a weight that was never solely yours to carry in the first place. This is your invitation to listen with deep affection to everything that made you sick, to finally acknowledge the silent, unwitnessed effort you've been carrying for years.
Even the bravest also deserves affection and light. No matter how valiant you are, no matter how many people you've saved along the way, you are inherently deserving of the exact same love, affection, and protection that you so freely give to others. You are absolutely allowed to be taken care of.
We really need to completely reframe the act of resting. If you stop today, it's not the end of the world. It's not a failure. It is protection. It's the ultimate act of self-preservation. You just can't pour from an empty cup. Setting boundaries to protect your own energy is literally the strongest thing you can possibly do. Because even those who save the world need to save their heart. If you've spent your whole life being strong for everyone else, maybe it's time to use just a fraction of that strength to protect yourself. So I want to leave you with this explainer's final question. Who are you trying so hard to be strong for? And when was the last time you allowed someone to be strong for you? You don't have to carry every burden alone.